Dylan Dog is one of the most iconic and influential Italian comic books, a true milestone in the Italian comic scene, but also on an international level. Created by Tiziano Sclavi, Dylan Dog first appeared in September 1986, published by Sergio Bonelli, a publisher of enormous significance in the Italian comic industry. From its debut, Dylan Dog has stood out for its originality, the depth of the themes it explores, and a unique atmosphere that blends horror, noir, and deep psychological introspection. The protagonist, Dylan Dog, is a nightmare investigator, a private detective based in London who specializes in paranormal cases. However, Dylan is far from the typical invincible hero. He's a complex character, haunted by his inner demons, with a deep sensitivity and a melancholic soul. His characterization is one of the key elements that contributed to the comic's success, making him instantly recognizable and beloved by readers. He resides in a Gothic London, in an apartment located at 7 Craven Road, a clear homage to Wes Craven, the famous horror film director. Dylan is accompanied on his adventures by his assistant Groucho, a bizarre and surreal character who is a clear nod to the comedian Groucho Marx. Groucho often provides comic relief, lightening the tension in some of the darker episodes. The success of Dylan Dog was overwhelming from the start. The first issue sold over 50,000 copies, an extraordinary result for a comic at the time. In the following years, sales continued to grow, with some special issues exceeding 100,000 copies. This success turned Dylan Dog into a true cult phenomenon with a passionate and loyal fan base. The character became a pop icon, recognized and loved not only in Italy but also abroad, where the comic has been translated into numerous languages. One of the reasons for its enduring popularity is the richness and depth of the themes it explores. The series is not just a collection of horror stories but a complex, multi-layered exploration of the human condition. The themes in Dylan Dog range from existential questions about life and death to social critiques and deep psychological introspections. Each theme is intricately woven into the fabric of the narrative, creating stories that resonate on multiple levels, engaging readers in both intellectual and emotional ways. The theme of death in Dylan Dog is one of the comic's foundational elements, permeating every aspect of the narrative and profoundly influencing character and story development. In this series, death is not just a final event, a closing moment of existence, but a constant and inevitable presence that manifests in multiple forms and meanings, often subverting traditional expectations associated with this theme. Dylan Dog, the protagonist, lives with an acute awareness of his own mortality and the mortality of those he loves and encounters along his journey. This awareness of death gives the character a sense of melancholy and a fatalistic attitude, which is reflected in how he approaches situations and interacts with others. Death is a silent companion that follows Dylan in every investigation, a shadow that accompanies him with every step and influences his worldview. In Dylan Dog, death is often explored as a mysterious and unfathomable force that escapes rational understanding. It is not uncommon for allegorical figures of death to appear, entities that embody its power and interact with Dylan and other characters in ways that go beyond merely representing the end of life. These figures can take on benevolent or malevolent forms, depending on the narrative context, and they serve to highlight the ambiguity of death as both a concept and an experience. In Dylan Dog's world, death is not always seen as a definitive end. In many stories, the boundaries between life and death are fluid and permeable, with deceased characters continuing to exert a tangible presence in the world of the living through apparitions, memories, or supernatural manifestations. This cyclical and non-linear view of death reflects a broader and more philosophical conception of life itself, where death is not necessarily a conclusion, but rather a transformation, a passage to another form of existence or awareness. Dylan Dog's relationship with death is also deeply personal. The loss of loved ones is a recurring theme, and every death Dylan encounters, whether it's that of a friend, a lover, or a mere acquaintance, leaves an indelible mark on his soul. Death, in this sense, is seen as a source of pain and suffering, but also as an element that forces the character to confront his deepest fears and the meaning of his own existence. In various stories, death is also explored through the lens of justice and revenge. Death can act as an agent of balance, a force that restores moral order when human justice fails. In these cases, death is presented not as a random event, but as an inevitable fate that befalls those who have lived in error or guilt. However, this otherworldly justice is often depicted ambivalently, as its intervention can be as relentless as it is cruel, leaving no room for redemption or mercy. Death is also a theme closely tied to identity and memory in Dylan Dog. The characters, including Dylan himself, are often defined by the losses they have suffered and the deaths that have marked their lives. The memory of the deceased becomes a crucial element in defining who the living are and how they choose to continue their existence. Thus, death is not just the end of a life, but also the beginning of a new process of defining and redefining identity for those who remain. In Dylan Dog, death is also approached as an inevitable element of the human condition. Acceptance of death, understanding it, and eventual reconciliation with it are central themes that run through many of the stories. Dylan himself, despite his constant proximity to death, struggles with the idea of his own mortality, expressing a tension between the desire to live fully and the awareness that every life is destined to end. This duality helps to create a complex character who continually grapples with the meaning of life through the prism of death. The representation of death in Dylan Dog is never simply horrific or macabre. It is often poetic, philosophical, and laden with symbolic meanings. Death becomes a theme through which to explore the beauty and fragility of life, the nature of destiny, and the search for meaning in a world that is often incomprehensible. This layered portrayal of death has helped elevate Dylan Dog above the realm of simple horror comics, transforming it into a work that sophisticatedly tackles one of the most universal and profound themes of human experience. The theme of love in Dylan Dog is treated with a delicacy and depth that makes it one of the most fascinating and tragic aspects of the series. For Dylan Dog, love is never simple or straightforward. It is a complex and often devastating force, capable of bringing both joy and suffering. This theme permeates many of the stories, revealing how love can be both a source of life and torment, something deeply desired but also feared. Dylan Dog is a character who falls in love easily, but his romances are almost always marked by tragedy. Whenever Dylan falls in love, he does so with intense passion, fully immersing himself in the relationship. However, these love stories are often doomed to end abruptly, leaving Dylan in a state of melancholy and deep reflection. This is not just a narrative quirk, but reflects a broader philosophical view of love as something intrinsically linked to loss and suffering. In Dylan Dog, love is often explored as a force that transcends life itself, a feeling that continues to exist even beyond death. Many of Dylan's romantic relationships do not end with the death of a partner, but continue in different forms, through memories, dreams, or supernatural apparitions. This element gives love an eternal and indestructible quality, even though it is inevitably tinged with pain. Death is not seen as a definitive barrier to love, but as another state through which the emotion can express itself, albeit in more melancholic and dreamlike forms. Love in Dylan Dog is also deeply connected to loneliness. Despite often being surrounded by people, there is a constant sense of isolation that permeates Dylan's life. This isolation is partly due to the nature of his work, which forces him to confront horror and the supernatural, but it is also linked to his inability to maintain lasting relationships. Every romance Dylan experiences seems destined to fall apart for some inevitable reason. This solitude is not just physical but also emotional, reinforcing the melancholy that characterizes the character. Sacrifice is another theme through which love is explored. Many stories in Dylan Dog feature characters willing to sacrifice everything for love, including themselves. These sacrifices can be both noble and tragic, often highlighting the destructive power of love, which can lead to extreme choices and devastating consequences. In this context, sacrifice becomes a testament to the intensity of love, but also a demonstration of its capacity to consume those involved. The fleeting and transient nature of love is another central theme in Dylan Dog. The protagonist's romantic relationships are always brief, almost ephemeral, contributing to a sense of nostalgia and regret that runs through the series. Every love that Dylan experiences is an unfinished story, a chapter that closes too soon, leaving behind only memories and a deep sense of loss. This portrayal of love as something elusive and transient reflects an existential view of life, where nothing is permanent and everything is destined to end. The complexity of love in Dylan Dog is further emphasized by the presence of tormented and often impossible relationships. Dylan falls in love with women who are, in some way, unreachable, whether due to supernatural reasons or life circumstances that inevitably separate them. This impossible love becomes a metaphor for the unattainability of desire and the inevitability of pain in the experience of love. Even when love is reciprocated, there is always an external force, a cruel fate, or an inescapable reality that prevents the characters from finding true and lasting happiness. Moreover, love in Dylan Dog is often tied to the theme of memory. The love stories that the protagonist experiences never truly end, but continue to live on in his memories, influencing his behavior and future choices. The memory of lost love becomes a burden that Dylan carries with him, a constant reminder of the fragility of happiness and the permanence of pain. These memories are both sweet and bitter, representing both the beauty of love and its inevitable end. Another significant aspect of love in Dylan Dog is its portrayal as a feeling that defies social conventions and the limits of reality. Love in this series does not follow traditional rules and often manifests in ways that go beyond logic and reason. It is a love that can arise in unlikely circumstances, between people from different worlds, or even between the living and the dead. This approach to love as something unlimited and non-conforming to traditional norms reflects the very nature of the comic, which challenges conventions and freely moves between genres and themes. The theme of madness in Dylan Dog is one of the most pervasive and complex aspects of the series, explored through a wide range of forms and nuances. In the world of Dylan Dog, madness is not simply a clinical condition or a mental disorder. It is a subtle and elusive reality that often overlaps with and blurs the lines of normality. It represents a dimension of human experience that can emerge at any moment, transforming perceptions of reality and challenging everyday certainties. Dylan Dog, the protagonist, constantly teeters on the edge between sanity and madness. His role as a nightmare investigator forces him to confront situations that test the limits of reason and compel him to explore the boundaries between the real and the imaginary. In many stories, madness is depicted as an abyss into which Dylan risks falling, a dark place in the mind where the deepest fears and hidden traumas find expression. This aspect of his character makes Dylan profoundly human, vulnerable, and acutely aware of the fragility of his own mind. In the world of Dylan Dog, madness often manifests as a reaction to an oppressive and incomprehensible reality. The characters Dylan encounters are frequently ordinary people who, when faced with extraordinary or traumatic events, lose control of their minds. Madness becomes a response to a reality that cannot be faced with rational means, serving as a refuge from unbearable suffering or the horrors that overwhelm existence. In this sense, madness is also a form of rebellion, a refusal to accept a cruel and unjust reality. Madness in Dylan Dog is also portrayed as a process of identity disintegration. Characters who fall prey to madness often lose their sense of self. watching as the certainties on which they built their lives crumble. This loss of identity can manifest in various ways, from the fragmentation of personality to the emergence of an alter ego, and even to complete alienation from the surrounding world. Dylan himself, in some of his adventures, finds himself doubting his sanity, questioning whether the events he experiences are real or the product of a mind slipping into madness. Another crucial aspect of madness in Dylan Dog is its connection to the supernatural. In many stories, what is perceived as madness is actually an encounter with forces or entities beyond human understanding. The mind, when faced with these incomprehensible phenomena, reacts by trying to make sense of what cannot be explained logically, often leading the character to madness. In this context, madness becomes a kind of gateway to another dimension of reality, a way to access truths that are beyond rational comprehension. Madness is also explored in relation to memory and the past. Many of the stories in Dylan Dog involve characters tormented by painful memories or traumatic events they have repressed, but which continue to influence their present. The mind, unable to process these traumas, shatters, giving rise to irrational behaviors and hallucinations. This theme is particularly relevant to Dylan himself, whose past is often shrouded in mystery and contradiction. In this case, madness becomes an echo of the past, a return of the repressed that the mind cannot control. Modern society is often depicted in Dylan Dog as a force that contributes to pushing individuals toward madness. Alienation, loneliness, isolation, and social oppression are recurring themes that serve as the backdrop for many stories. The characters who succumb to madness are often victims of a world that has stripped them of meaning and genuine human connections. In this sense, madness also serves as a critique of contemporary society, viewed as a dehumanizing environment that can push people beyond the limits of sanity. The theme of madness in Dylan Dog is further complicated by the way the series plays with perceptions of reality. Often, what seems like madness could be real, and what appears normal might hide disturbing truths. This ambiguity creates an atmosphere of constant uncertainty, where neither the characters nor the readers can be sure of what is true and what is a product of the mind. Reality itself in Dylan Dog is unstable and subject to transformations that defy logic and reason. A key element of the portrayal of madness in Dylan Dog is its tragic dimension. Madness, while it might be seen as a way to escape an unbearable reality, is always accompanied by suffering and loss. Characters who fall into madness lose not only their connection to reality, but also to themselves and others. This loss is irreversible and often leads to a tragic fate, underscoring the destructive aspect of madness. Finally, madness in Dylan Dog is often depicted as an inner journey, a path that leads characters to confront their personal demons. This journey is usually painful and leads to a revelation that can be as enlightening as it is devastating. In this sense, madness becomes a metaphor for the search for self, an exploration of the darkest and most hidden parts of the human soul. The theme of time in Dylan Dog is explored in a complex and multifaceted way, permeating many of the stories and providing a rich ground for philosophical, existential, and narrative exploration. In the world of Dylan Dog, time is not just a linear, unchanging dimension. Rather, it is often portrayed as a fluid and malleable element that can be manipulated, distorted, or even stopped. This treatment of time reflects a worldview in which reality itself is unstable and where the past, present, and future can intertwine in unpredictable and unsettling ways. One of the most fascinating aspects of time in Dylan Dog is its ability to confuse conventional notions of chronology. In the series, time can flow non-linearly, with events from the past suddenly resurfacing in the present or visions of the future influencing characters' actions in their now. This temporal distortion is not just a narrative device, but a reflection on the very nature of time and its relationship with human experience. In this sense, time becomes almost a character in its own right, a force with which Dylan and the other characters must contend. The past plays a crucial role in how time is treated in Dylan Dog. Memories, often fragmented or distorted, emerge from the past to haunt the characters, revealing how time is not something that can be left behind. On the contrary, the past persists, influencing the present and shaping the future. This theme is particularly evident in stories where Dylan must confront traumatic events or decisions he made in the past, the effects of which continue to reverberate in his present. In this context, time is seen as cyclical, with events repeating or reflecting across different eras. Time is also explored in relation to the concept of memory. In Dylan Dog, memory is not simply an archive of past events, but a dynamic element that can be manipulated by time. Memories can be altered, rewritten, or lost, and this fluidity of memory creates a sense of uncertainty and instability. Thus, time not only influences the chronology of events, but also the character's perception and understanding of those events. This leads to a view of time as something profoundly subjective, where each character may experience their own version of the past, present, and future. Another significant aspect of time in Dylan Dog is its relationship with fate and free will. Many stories explore the idea that time might be predetermined, with events inevitably repeating according to a pre-written script. This concept of cyclical, predestined time challenges the idea of free will, suggesting that the characters, including Dylan, are trapped in a temporal cycle they cannot control. However, some stories challenge this view, showing how characters' choices can influence and alter the course of time, introducing the possibility that fate is not as rigid as it seems. Time is often depicted as an element that can be manipulated or influenced by supernatural forces. In Dylan Dog, it is not uncommon for the protagonist to encounter entities or objects capable of altering the normal flow of time. These manipulations lead to scenarios where the past and future overlap, or where time itself seems to stop or accelerate unnaturally. These episodes not only add a surreal dimension to the narrative, but also emphasize the unpredictability of time and its ability to escape human control. Time in Dylan Dog is also linked to the theme of mortality. The awareness of time passing serves as a constant reminder of the finiteness of life, and many stories reflect on the inevitability of aging and death. The passage of time is often seen as an enemy that slowly consumes the characters, leading them toward an unavoidable fate. However, time is also what gives life meaning, making the moments that Dylan and other characters live through precious. This duality of time as both a destructive force and a measure of life's value is one of the series' most profound and touching themes. Another way time is explored in Dylan Dog is through the concept of eternity or timeless existence. In some stories, time seems to stop altogether, creating a sense of stasis or immobility. These moments of temporal suspension are often associated with supernatural or mystical experiences, where the characters find themselves in a limbo between life and death, or between the world of the living and that of spirits. Eternity, in this sense, is not necessarily seen as a gift, but as a condition that can be alienating and frightening, as it deprives the characters of the normal cycle of life and death. Finally, time in Dylan Dog is often depicted as a dimension capable of healing or hurting. Time can soothe emotional wounds and allow characters to overcome pain, but it can also exacerbate feelings of loss and regret, bringing old wounds back to the surface that have never truly healed. This dual role of time as both a healer and a perpetuator of pain adds emotional depth to the stories, reflecting the complexity of human experience and the difficulty of leaving the past behind. The theme of social criticism is one of the most incisive and nuanced aspects of Dylan Dog. The series uses the comic medium not just to tell stories of horror and mystery, but also as a tool to reflect on the contradictions, injustices, and alienation present in contemporary society. Tiziano Sclavi, the creator of the series, masterfully weaves sharp social commentary into the narratives of Dylan Dog. This criticism emerges through the characters, settings, and situations in which the protagonist finds himself. It is never preachy or moralistic, but rather unfolds naturally within the storytelling, inviting readers to reflect on the themes in a deep and often unsettling way. One of the main threads of social criticism in Dylan Dog is urban alienation. The London in which Dylan moves is often depicted as a cold, dark, and alienating city, where individuals are isolated despite their physical proximity to one another. This sense of isolation symbolizes a modern society that, while increasingly populated and interconnected, leaves individuals profoundly alone. The stories of Dylan Dog explore how city life, with its frantic and dehumanizing pace, can erode humanity and connection, pushing people toward despair, madness, or indifference. Consumerism is another target of social criticism in Dylan Dog. The series portrays consumer society as a system that drives people to pursue false ideals of happiness through the purchase and accumulation of material goods, often at the expense of human relationships and mental well-being. The comic explores how consumerism can transform individuals into mere cogs in an economic machine, stripping them of their individuality and reducing them to simple consumers. This theme is addressed through stories that highlight the damage caused by rampant materialism, which not only dehumanizes but also leads to a crisis of values and identity. Dylan Dog also critiques themes like violence and corruption. Violence, whether physical, psychological, or structural, is a recurring element in the stories, often used to highlight the injustices and inequalities present in society. The corruption of institutions, whether political, religious, or economic, is another frequently explored theme, with stories showing how power can be exercised in oppressive and unjust ways. As a nightmare investigator, Dylan Dog often finds himself battling not just supernatural monsters, but also the monsters of society. Corrupt institutions, unjust laws, and systems that favor the powerful at the expense of the weak. Racism and intolerance are themes that the series addresses with courage, often through stories that highlight the devastating consequences of prejudice and discrimination. Dylan Dog uses the fantastic to explore fears and anxieties related to diversity, reflecting on how these can lead to the dehumanization of others and to violence. The stories challenge readers to confront their own prejudices and recognize the humanity in those who are different by ethnicity, religion, sexual orientation, or other characteristics. In this way, the comic becomes a vehicle for promoting greater understanding and tolerance while openly criticizing intolerance and fanaticism. Another aspect of social criticism in Dylan Dog involves the media industry and the manipulation of information. The series does not shy away from showing how media can be used to distort the truth, create panic, or manipulate public opinion. This theme is particularly relevant in an increasingly media-saturated society where the line between reality and fiction is often blurred. Dylan Dog, as a character, is constantly searching for the truth, even when it is uncomfortable or dangerous, and the comic emphasizes the importance of maintaining a critical mindset toward the information presented to us. Environmental issues and ecological destruction are also subtly addressed in Dylan Dog. The comic often depicts nature as a force rebelling against humanity, punishing it for indiscriminate exploitation and lack of respect. This portrayal reflects a critique of modernity and technological progress, which too often advances without considering the consequences for the environment and future generations. Environmental destruction is seen not only as an ecological problem, but also as a moral crisis, where humanity has lost its sense of place within the natural world. The critique of the capitalist system is another theme that emerges in various stories. Dylan Dog does not limit itself to criticizing consumerism, but also explores how capitalism can create inequality, exploitation, and alienation. The stories often depict characters who are victims of a ruthless economic system that reduces them to mere tools for others' profit. This theme is tackled with particular intensity in stories that explore the world of work, where the loss of dignity and identity is a direct consequence of a system that values profit above all else. Finally, social criticism in Dylan Dog includes a reflection on existentialism and the search for meaning in a modern, often dehumanizing society. Many characters in the series struggle with a sense of emptiness and despair, stemming from feeling alienated in a world that seems devoid of meaning. This existential crisis is exacerbated by societal pressures that impose materialistic and superficial values, leaving little room for inner reflection and the search for deeper meaning. Dylan himself embodies this existential struggle, constantly seeking to find meaning in a world that often seems senseless and cruel. The theme of the occult is one of the foundational pillars of Dylan Dog, serving as a crucial element that permeates many of the stories and contributes to the comic's unique and unsettling atmosphere. In Dylan Dog, the occult isn't just a collection of paranormal or inexplicable phenomena. It represents a complex universe of symbols, myths, and beliefs deeply rooted in folklore, magic, and esoteric traditions. This theme allows the series to explore the thin line between reality and fantasy, between the known and the hidden, between the visible world and the invisible. Dylan Dog, as a nightmare investigator, is immersed in a world where the occult is not just a curiosity or a background element, but a tangible and often dangerous reality. The stories involve him dealing with a wide range of supernatural phenomena, from ghosts to demons, curses to mythical creatures, as well as magical rites and ancient esoteric knowledge. This constant contact with the occult not only defines his work but also shapes his worldview, which is always open to mystery and the inexplicable. One of the most fascinating aspects of the occult in Dylan Dog is its connection to the past and ancient traditions. Many stories are steeped in references to ancient myths, pagan beliefs, and magical practices that date back to distant times. This connection to the past gives the stories a sense of historical depth, as if the occult were an eternal and unchanging presence that has accompanied humanity since its origins. Ancient cults, forgotten religions, and esoteric traditions in Dylan Dog are not just remnants of the past, but forces that continue to influence the present, manifesting in unexpected and often disturbing ways. The occult in Dylan Dog is also closely linked to the theme of power. Magic and esoteric practices are often depicted as means through which individuals or groups seek to exert control over others or alter reality to their advantage. However, this power is ambivalent and dangerous, as those who seek to manipulate occult forces often end up being consumed or destroyed by them. This theme reflects a view of power as something inherently corrupt and perilous, leading inevitably to disastrous consequences for those who try to master it without fully understanding its nature. The theme of the occult is further explored through the concept of forbidden or secret knowledge. In Dylan Dog, the occult is often associated with hidden knowledge, accessible only to a select few or those who dare to venture beyond the limits of the known. This knowledge is dangerous not only because of its content, but also because of how it can transform those who possess it. The desire to uncover and master the occult often drives characters to make morally questionable choices, pushing them toward darkness and damnation. This theme echoes the Faustian myth, where the pursuit of power and knowledge becomes a deadly trap. Another crucial aspect of the occult in Dylan Dog is its connection to the unconscious and dreams. Often the stories explore how the occult manifests through dreams and visions, revealing hidden truths or premonitions of future events. In Dylan Dog, dreams are not simply moments of escape from reality, but windows into parallel worlds and dimensions of existence that defy logic and reason. The occult, in this sense, becomes a metaphor for the unconscious itself, for those parts of the human psyche that remain dark and inaccessible, but deeply influence conscious life. Dylan's relationship with the occult is also marked by a profound sense of ambiguity. Although he operates as a nightmare investigator, dealing with and solving cases involving the supernatural, Dylan is never entirely convinced of the nature of the forces he encounters. This ambiguity is reflected in his attitude toward the occult. On the one hand, he is a man of science and reason. On the other, he cannot ignore the tangible evidence of a world beyond the visible. This dualism makes Dylan Dog a particularly interesting character, as he represents the eternal conflict between skepticism and belief, between rationality and faith in the inexplicable. The occult in Dylan Dog is often associated with the theme of evil, but this concept is treated with great complexity. In the series, evil is never entirely separate from good, and the occult can represent both the temptation to succumb to dark forces and the possibility of discovery and enlightenment. This ambivalence is one of the comic's distinguishing features, as it rejects simplistic dichotomies and prefers to explore the shades of gray that characterize human experience. In this context, the occult becomes a moral battleground, where the characters' choices determine not only their fate, but also the nature of the forces they confront. Another fundamental element of the occult in Dylan Dog is its connection to death and the afterlife. The stories often explore the boundary between life and death, using the occult as a means to connect the living with the dead. This theme is deeply rooted in many cultures and esoteric traditions, which view death not as an end but as a transformation or passage to another form of existence. In Dylan Dog, the occult becomes the bridge that allows this boundary to be crossed, revealing the continuity between the world of the living and that of the dead. The theme of dreams in Dylan Dog is one of the most fascinating and profound elements of the series, used to explore the human psyche, the boundaries between reality and fantasy, and the deepest fears of the characters. In the world of Dylan Dog, dreams are not merely nocturnal experiences, but a parallel dimension that constantly intertwines with reality, influencing the course of events and revealing hidden truths that cannot be understood through simple rationality. In Dylan Dog, dreams are often depicted as a gateway to the unconscious, a place where fears, desires, and traumas emerge in symbolic forms. This portrayal of dreams as a symbolic language allows the comic to delve into complex and dark themes that go beyond the everyday and the conscious. As a result, dreams become a narrative tool through which the most hidden and unsettling aspects of the characters, including Dylan himself, are revealed. One of the recurring themes in the series is the blurred line between dreams and reality. Often, the stories in Dylan Dog play with this ambiguity, making it difficult to distinguish what is real from what is dreamt. This effect is achieved through narratives that unfold in a non-linear manner or contain events that can only be explained as dream manifestations. This type of storytelling not only creates an atmosphere of mystery and unease, but also reflects the fragile nature of reality itself, suggesting that our perception of the world is always influenced by our dreams and fears. Dreams in Dylan Dog are also frequently connected to the theme of premonition. In many stories, the dreams of the protagonist or other characters turn out to be visions of the future, warnings of events that are about to happen. These premonitory dreams not only add a supernatural dimension to the narrative, but also challenge the linearity of time, suggesting that the future can influence the present through the medium of dreams. This theme reinforces the idea that dreams serve as a link between different temporal planes, a means by which the past, present, and future can interact in mysterious and incomprehensible ways. Another important aspect of dreams in Dylan Dog is their ability to reveal truths that the conscious mind refuses or hides. In this context, dreams are seen as a form of alternative truth that can uncover the true feelings and motivations of the characters, often concealed behind a facade of rationality or self-control. This revelatory function of dreams is used to explore deep psychological themes such as guilt, desire, fear of death, and the internal struggle between good and evil. Dreams thus become a battleground where different parts of the psyche manifest without the filters of rationality. Dreams in Dylan Dog are also associated with the dimension of desire and eroticism. Often, the characters' dreams are filled with sexual symbolism or represent fantasies that could not be realized in reality. These erotic dreams are not simply moments of escape, but reflect emotional and psychological tensions that the characters experience in their daily lives. Eroticism in dreams becomes another way to explore the hidden side of the psyche, revealing the deepest desires and most intimate fears that the characters cannot or do not want to confront in reality. The theme of dreams is also used in Dylan Dog to explore the concept of identity. In dreams, characters can take on different identities, live parallel lives, or confront alternative versions of themselves. This play with dream identities reflects the fluidity of human identity, suggesting that who we are is largely influenced by our dreams and fantasies. In dreams, characters can explore aspects of themselves that remain hidden in their waking lives, confronting their fears and desires in an environment where the rules of reality do not apply. In Dylan Dog, dreams are also closely tied to the theme of madness. Often the line between dream and nightmare becomes blurred, and characters are no longer able to distinguish what is real from what is a product of their minds. This confusion between dream and reality can drive characters to madness in a process where the loss of control over their dreams leads to a loss of control over their sanity. This theme reflects the fragility of the human mind and the thin line that separates sanity from madness, a line that dreams can easily cross. Finally, dreams in Dylan Dog are often used to explore the concept of destiny. In dreams, characters may receive cryptic messages or visions that seem to predict their future, suggesting that destiny is something written deep within the unconscious. These prophetic dreams challenge the idea of free will, suggesting that our lives are guided by forces beyond our understanding, which manifest through dream symbolism. Dreams thus become a means through which destiny reveals itself, not as a clear and linear path, but as a complex web of symbols and images that only time will fully unveil. Over the years, the Dylan Dog series has gone through various evolutionary phases, with significant changes in its narrative and style. During the 1990s, following Tiziano Sclavi's departure as the main writer, the series saw the introduction of new authors, leading to a diversification of the themes explored. Despite these changes, Dylan Dog maintained its core identity, continuing to delve into horror in all its forms, from supernatural terror to more psychological and human fears. Dylan Dog has also inspired a wide range of merchandise, including posters, t-shirts, action figures, and board games, further cementing its status as a cultural icon. The character has appeared in various parodies and homages in other comics and media, underscoring his influence and impact on popular culture. The importance of Dylan Dog in the Italian comic landscape cannot be overstated. The series not only defined a genre but also helped elevate comics as an art form in Italy, demonstrating that comic stories could tackle deep and complex themes, offering readers not just entertainment but also thoughtful reflections and a critical view of reality. In conclusion, Dylan Dog represents a fundamental chapter in the history of Italian comics, a work that masterfully blends horror, philosophy, and storytelling, creating a fascinating and unsettling universe that has captivated generations of readers. Its legacy continues today, with new generations discovering and becoming passionate about the adventures of the Nightmare Investigator, solidifying its status as an enduring icon of the comic world.